Roy Fowler, a working-class Staffordshire man from a humble background. A man inspired to run by severe health problems as a child. A man full of determination and single-mindedness. A long-distance runner who competed against state-funded professional athletes twice his size and with twice the resources. A man who faced enough adversity for 2 lifetimes. And yet, a man who would go on to rule the world. This is the story of Roy, the Red Fox Fowler. Roy's eventful life began on March the 26th, 1934, near Leek, a beautiful market town set against the backdrop of the inspiring and dramatic Staffordshire moorlands. A backdrop which would shape Roy's life and mirror his achievements in running. Roy was born into a working-class family. His father, Henry, was a textile factory worker whose income provided for the family. At school, Roy was always interested in sports, but was held back by spiralling health problems. Roy suffered enormously from increasingly severe bouts of pneumonia. His condition got worse and worse until one day he was told his life was in danger. Action had to be taken. Roy and his parents were called for an emergency meeting with their local GP, Dr. Dyson. The man who delivered Roy into the world came up with an unorthodox cure. A cure which not only saved his life, but proved to be the first step on the long road to success.
Dr. Dyson recommended that Roy built up his lungs, built up his body, because he was a small child. He remained small, of course, throughout his life. But at this time, Dr. Dyson recommended for healthy living and improvement in his general condition, daily running. And that's the start, in a sense, of Roy Fowler's running career, which was to go on for the rest of his life.
The medicine worked. By running every day, Roy's health improved dramatically. But instead of slowing down, Roy kept running. And running. And running. Until the cure turned into a passion. In a few years' time, Roy's hard work and training would be legendary. But at first, every now and then, he needed a gentle push in the right direction.
His mother used to come up to him every morning to get him out of bed at 5:30 in the morning for his first training session.
She'd perhaps say, there's 2 inches of snow outside, or we've had a terrible frost, wrap up warm. She'd chuck me tracksuit top.
And her line would be, "Come on, Roy, get out of bed, you won't win any medals lying there."
Mother very thorough, and I'd get out and do me 3/4 of an hour, wherever it was in the morning, and just ran. Well, it's all hills, aren't it? Wherever you go from A to B, you're going up a bank. And that was my morning session.
In 1957, at the age of 21, Roy was called up for national service, which he served at Oswestry. Instead of holding up his running career, his time in the army accelerated his progression.
Roy, of course, in the army was a sort of state-aided athlete. He had time off for training, effectively, and it was almost, not quite, but almost like 2 years at an athletics training camp, where they had competitions. They had a running track, a proper running track at Oswestry, where he was based, and he became a solid runner as a result of this consistent training.
Along with running, Roy used his time at Oswestry to practice physiotherapy, a skill that would come in handy later in life. It was in the army that he met Basil Heatley, a future Olympic silver medalist, deadly rival and dearest friend.
We were on the same army team, and within a couple of years we were on the England cross-country team together. But most of the time, of course, we were opponents. actually during the race, but anything but opponents off the track, as it were. We raced each other so many times, and whatever the result, we would not have held it against the other one, whichever way it went. And also I think with distance run in particular, every athlete puts such a lot of work in, particularly talking about 40 odd years ago, such a lot of work in for such little reward, that you appreciate that if somebody's beaten you, the chances are that they've done more work than what you had, and therefore they deserve the victory. It's most unlike other aspects of life where it's so easy to become jealous of somebody that's actually doing better than what you are.
It was in the army that Roy formulated his legendary, if not unorthodox, training method. Running in heavy-duty army boots.
Of course, he would wear army boots from time to time, and no doubt the extra weight on his feet helped strengthen his legs.
But his idea was you'd train in those, and then when you come in to put your racing shoes on, which are ultra light, it's like having ballet shoes on, so you feel like you're running with nothing on your feet. That was the philosophy behind it.
Some people say he added extra nails to make them heavier.
You know, his running in boots was legendary. You know, I mean, the kind of up the banks, as they're called up in North Staffs hills round here. So there was this aura built up around him, and he obviously trained very hard.
It's on him, and he got these big heavy boots that he used to wear. And we would always train in very light shoes, you know, before we put our football boots on for the ball work. And so we used to look at him thinking, wait, he can't run in these things, surely.
And it's not so silly as it sounds now, 50 years on, you know, you are strength training.
And this had a certain amount of logic to it. It was a kind of resistance training. His body wasn't only battling against going up the hills, he was doing weight training at the same time with his legs. He had these boots on.
You know, myths and stories built up around him as to how hard and how, you know, what a tough taskmaster was to himself in his training.
Does the talent lie just in his athleticism, or does the talent lie in his ability to train hard? You know, Roy's athleticism, moderate, but Roy's ability to train hard, his tenacity, if you like.
When he stepped out on the track, he would be prepared in terms of having done the work, so you knew you were always in for a hard race.
Despite this incredible training schedule, Roy's early career was steady rather than explosive, and it took him a while to rise up through the ranks. In 1960, his chance came to make an impact in the athletics world. The Midlands Track Championship. Although Fowler was an underdog in a good quality field, he raced to victory, beating the man in form, Basil Heatley, in the process. Roy had become Midlands 3-mile champion. This proved a major turning point for Roy. The win gave him some much-needed confidence, and he went on to an impressive winning run. In 1961, Roy had the opportunity to further enhance his record at the Inter-Counties Cross-Country Championship at Bingley. This was his biggest race yet, competing against the top runners in Britain. Roy's father Henry travelled with him to give him some much-needed support.
Well, lad, it's on today. We're on paper, there's about 8 or 9 of these internationals, and we've got Bruce Tuller, Batty, Ron Hill, Mike Freary. The challenge is there, mate. I know that I'm going for a walk, so just think about it. Get your mind set on it. All this work we've put in this last 6 or 7 months is all ready for today. Okay, kid? All right, Dan. I'll do my best. Well, sometimes your best in row is good enough. It's a supreme effort you want. I'll see you. And I never saw him again then, till bloody race run, when he appeared from nowhere as he did.
Not only did Roy have world-class athletes to compete against, he also had to contend with the weather, which was appalling, as Athletics Weekly editor Jimmy Green described. Over hilly farmland covered in snow some 8 or 9 inches deep, Roy Fowler, on the crest of a wave and full of confidence after his recent win over Basil Heatley, and despite having been unwell during the week, won a race which was the severest test of stamina. Fowler ran a well-judged race and eventually came home with 25 yards to spare, having won a great race. It was a great performance and just reward for a man who trains hard twice a day. Despite having to scrape the ice from his face, Roy had arrived. He was a champion.
Roy first came to my notice in 1961, not by any kind of direct contact, but by virtue of his outstanding result in winning the Inter-Counties Cross Country of that year up in Bingley, in notoriously bad weather conditions. But he beat the lot, and that was really the opening to his door. I think he'd been about for some time, but certainly that was the one that really kind of set the seal on what he was to go and achieve over the next few years.
1962 was a big year for athletes, with both the European and Commonwealth Games being held. Competition for places was fierce, and Roy knew he had to impress to fulfill his dream of international success. The yardstick for selection was traditionally the AAA 6-miler at White City, a race Roy had never won. But this year he knew he had to perform, although getting there proved to be a bit of a problem.
He got to London and got lost on his way to the stadium. It was as simple as that. And he looked across the road, saw a milk float with a milkman in it. He hailed the milkman. "Where's the White City? How do I get there?" The guy said, "Come on, jump on board. I'll take you there in the milk float." So Roy turns up at the stadium with athletes milling around the outside of the ground. Derek Ibbotson, one of his chums from Yorkshire, is alleged to have shouted out to Roy, "Do you come down from Stoke on that milk float, Roy?" And of course, this was one of the stunts, one of the mishaps, one of the little problems, if you like, that Roy encountered throughout his career.
Despite the rocky ride, Roy made the start line and crossed the finish line first. Roy not only won the race against Britain's best, he did it in a record time of 27 minutes and 49.8 seconds. This made Roy British and Commonwealth record holder, the fastest runner in the world that year, and British champion. A childhood dream had been recognised.
My own personal opinion is that the 3A's race in '62 that qualified him for the Belgrade race in the same year was perhaps his master run, simply because he was relatively unknown at the time.
Better news was still to come. Roy had been selected for the European Championships in Belgrade. His career was on the up. Roy was flying.
But, as was typical with Roy, he then hits a problem. And the problem was that he had an injury in the top of his leg, his groin, and the press got hold of this, and for a few days the question was, would Roy go to Belgrade? Would he run the 10,000 metres? Would he withdraw, etc., etc., etc. When he got out to Yugoslavia, he had massive massage, but he was still a bit depressed by this. You know, this is a race he'd set his heart on, and this kind of illness always seemed to attract him before a race, and yet he battled through it. He had the physiotherapy, he had the massage, and he got to the starting line.
Overcoming injury was one thing. Overcoming Europe's best was another. Now Roy had to face the formidable Russian Pyotr Bolotnikov. Bolotnikov had recently broken his own 10,000-metre world record, with a time of 28 minutes 18.2 seconds. The race took place on the 12th of September under the stadium's floodlights and turned out to be a classic. As David Coleman describes.
Off the 10 place hurdle, which has now been bidding for bronze medal. Yanker out in front. Well, he made his effort in the back straight, and one hardly feels he can make another, and Bolotnikov is still there. They're coming to the bell, and there's the lap chart showing 1, and it's Yanker in front of the bell, Bolotnikov second. Third is Boget, fourth is Hyman, fifth is Fowler. And there goes Bolotnikov. Bolotnikov making his bid for the gold medal, and he goes right away. Yanker settled for second place for the look of it. He looked round then, and Bolotnikov going right away and showing the form we expect from the world record holder and Olympic champion. Leaving behind him a fantastic race for second and third places, which it looks as if the Britons may be beaten. Let's see Bolotnikov home now. Bolotnikov 20 yards away from the European title, and there he takes it. The European champion, 10,000 metres. Bolotnikov in second place is Yanker at the moment. A fantastic finish, and Roy Fowler takes the bronze. Right on the line, Roy Fowler came through to take the bronze. What a finish, and there's the winner. Bolotnikov, the world record holder, the Olympic champion, and now the European champion. Second, fourth was Boget of France, and fifth was Hyman of Great Britain. A wonderful run by the British boys.
Roy, against all odds, had claimed the bronze for England. Third best in Europe, an incredible success when carrying an injury. Inspection of this exclusive footage reveals just how close Roy came to silver. If only the finish line was 10 yards further. Roy returned home a local and national hero. But heroism came at a cost.
At the end of the race, there had been external bleeding as well as internal bleeding. His briefs were attached to his body by blood, and he had to have the briefs cut with a pair of scissors to take that away from his body. And this was perhaps, again, a case of triumph over adversity, but it was a case of a man who had been in chronic pain for 2 or 3 days before, ending up getting a medal against East European state-aided athletes.
To win a medal at any major championship is quite an achievement. Not many athletes do it. I know Roy would have been disappointed. He would have wanted the gold, but you know for certain he would have given over 100%.
Roy now set his sights on the Commonwealth Games in Perth. But tragedy was to strike.
In 1962, Roy went to the Commonwealth Games in Perth in Australia, and he was due to do the 10,000 metres. Now, Roy being sandy-haired as he is, he knew, you know, light-coloured, he knew he'd got to be careful with the sun, and of course it was absolutely blazing. So one day they were off along the beach, and kind of everybody else had got the shirts off or the shorts on or whatever, but Roy was totally covered up. He just took his shoes off and was walking along the beach. What happened? The sun got the tops of his feet.
Where he became, unkindly perhaps, known as Hotfoot Fowler.
And he couldn't get his spikes on, and he didn't run.
Like the peaks and troughs of the countryside in which he trained, Roy's career had ups and downs. And after Perth, he was low. But Roy came back with his typical grit and determination.
Never say die was his style. He believed that he could win fairly and squarely by working harder than anybody else. And he didn't really believe that it was about style, it was about guts and determination. I would say that summed Roy out.
So if Roy was in the field, you knew there was a race on. You know, there was kind of, if you harboured any kind of hopes of doing well, you knew that you got a real fight on your hand.
far as his running is concerned, then it's 100% effort every time and all the way. Yeah.
Us working class kind of lads, we respected that because that's what we all like to a certain extent.
After a few low-profile comeback races, Roy was ready to take on the world once more. At the prestigious 1963 International Cross Country Championships, held in the unbearable heat of San Sebastian, Spain. The winner of the race would be regarded as the best in the world. But would the experience of Perth weigh heavy on Roy's mind? Especially as he was up against roaring temperatures and the formidable Belgian Gaston Roelants, the clear favourite. As Staffordshire and the rest of the world held their breath, Roy approached his main rival.
Be a bloody fast race this, I said, with Mike Jazzy in it. And he says, one mile, gone. So I tell us basically this. And he said, well, he says, you've got to draw your own conclusions now. He says, this bloody race is going beyond. He said, I'll tell you, he said, when the bloody gun go, it's going beyond, mate. It's going to be one of them.
I felt that it was his turn and that he would run well on that particular track. And it turned out that he had an almighty tussle with Gaston Roelants of Belgium, who, certainly if he wasn't the leading distance runner in the world then, he was to become so in the next year.
And they said, honest truth, the gun went bang and away we went like. And we got to about a mile and I looked across like that and there was only 3 of us there. We went round like and Roelants were leading. And then we went next lap, which was about halfway then, just over. And Gaston still leading, pushing it on, faster and faster, winding it up.
And Gaston tried several times to get away from Roy, who was nothing if not tenacious.
You knew that Roy would always have some little trick up his sleeve.
And this time when he come back, I said, well done, Hitley. Because I'd never seen Roland, his ruddy neck, his head nearly come out of his neck. I sort his head, and away he went again with a surge, on faster and faster, winding it up. And as I was running, I thought, if I make my move, this is going to be it. And I hit the bloody front in this apple orchard, straight over this ramp, and I was away. Roland's on my shoulder. I was in front for about 30 yards. He came past us, I had to stop. He come past. And all the way to the finish, we went past each other 5 times. And we come to the end, and I was just remembering a quote that Dean Zatopek said. If he's hurting you, Roy, and the work and training you do, and it's bloody killing them.
Give no quarter. You know, if Roy was in the race, he was there for one reason.
I went past Gaston again, and this time it was about 80 yards before he come past me. He come past again, 10 yards up he was, and I could, you know, he was good.
But certainly towards the end of the race, and I think there was a few examples of this, you know, he would be there kind of turning the screw.
And then just when your opponent thinks that they've got it, that's when you make your effort, and they haven't got time to respond.
I edged up to him again, and everything, there was a massive crowd. All at once everything went quiet, absolutely, couldn't hear a thing. Everything just blacked out. And I was running along, and my arms and my feet and everything, I was just going along, and all at once, he never come. And I was going on, and he never come.
Roy Fowler of Leek, Staffordshire had done it. He was world champion. The victory was great, but the manner and style of the win would become legend. A victory against the odds. A victory for the little man. A victory born out of hard work and daring to dream.
The fact that he'd beaten probably the world's best athlete wasn't enough for Roy. It had to have another little edge to it, and of course, that is the story that drove him on.
Nobody that I've ever seen run a long distance race was as totally played out as Roy was that evening. He'd given every last drop of energy that he'd got to hang on to Gaston.
He ran in San Sebastian. He got a nail through his foot early in the race, yet he carried on, and he won that race. And it would have been so easy for him to have given up and thought about the race afterwards. But Roy was only interested in that race. Whatever happened, it was about that race at that point in time.
After the San Sebastian race, Rowlands was pretty gutted by the defeat. He hadn't expected to lose, and Roy had run a fantastic race. And Rowlands took Roy aside the next day and said to him, could we have a rematch? And if you agree to this rematch, you can have as much money as you like. And Roy said, well, how much? And Rowlands said the cost of a house, which today would be something like 50 to 100,000 pounds. That's a pretty small house too. And Roy was tempted, he tells me. He was tempted to take this money, but there were two reasons why he didn't. First, he was still exhausted after the race, and he reckoned he'd need some time to recover. The foot had to recover, his body had to recover. And secondly, he said, well, you've had your chance, and that's that.
A modest man of honour, even in his finest hour, Roy had scaled the highest peak and now had his sights set on next year's Olympic Games in Tokyo. But how much had San Sebastian taken out of him?
Part of the course involved running across some concrete paths, wasn't totally cross-country, and these concrete paths triggered off some pains in his legs after the race. In fact, rather late in 1963, there was a qualifying race to get the required time to take part in the Olympics. Runners had to do a certain time in order to qualify. And it was in October 1963 that a race was held in Birmingham, which Roy thought I could get the qualifying time in this 5,000 metre race. He ran in it, and he didn't make the qualifying time. He finished pretty well down the field in a modest time. And this was very depressing for him, and in early 64 he realised that he'd have to see what's wrong with these legs. And he consulted a Manchester hospital where they discovered hairline fractures in his right leg, his shin. So Roy had to put the right leg in plaster, and let's hope. I can still got time for the Olympics. They're not till August, September. I've still got time to do it. Let's get this leg problem over. The right leg comes out of plaster. He now discovers the left leg has got a hairline fracture as well. So he's been running championship races, international races, winning races with what the popular press said, 2 broken legs. Even 2 months before the Olympics, he was still half thinking about could he make it. And he did try to run some races, but in no way could he qualify. So that dream faded away.
Roy had become world champion with 2 broken legs and a nail in his foot. But these injuries kept him out of action for 2 years. His Olympic dreams shattered. Once more, Roy was down. But not out. Roy eventually returned to fitness and form, just in time for the 1966 Inter-Counties Championship at Blackpool. A welcome return, according to Melvin Watman of Athletics Weekly. It is always a pleasure to welcome back an old champion, and especially so in the case of 31-year-old Roy Fowler, a fighter second to none, whose career was over when fractures of the fibula were found 2 years ago. Fowler stubbornly refused to give up the sport he loved so dearly. He began running again, and happily, the old magic was still there.
This is just the way to beat the cold on a winter afternoon. A great field of 351, 39 counties, each with 9 men. The course here is 7.5 miles over the Royal Lancashire Agricultural Showground. As well as the team title, there was the much-coveted overall championship. Winner in 1961, Staffordshire's Roy Fowler went to the front. In the good time for frosty conditions of 37 minutes 28 seconds, Fowler was first man home.
Roy was looking forward to the twilight of his career, with 3 major tournaments on the horizon, culminating in the Olympic Games in Mexico. But the injuries that had plagued his career returned. He was controversially overlooked for the 1968 European Championships in Budapest. And despite being selected for the Commonwealth Games, Roy was struck down by a mysterious illness just before the race. It was an illness that he struggled to recover from. His form suffered and he was unable to compete in Mexico. Once more, Roy's Olympic dreams were shattered.
For many athletes, most athletes, I think you could say, the Olympic Games is the pinnacle of their career. And Roy was very patriotic. He liked to represent Britain.
It must be a major disappointment. I mean, but he made European and Commonwealth, and I didn't. You know, so I mean, you can balance those two out.
But you know, certainly the Olympics isn't everybody's top shelf for going to and mixing it with the best.
Over the course of a career, whatever sports person you're talking to, there will be balancing things. And I would imagine that Roy's feelings are very much the same as that, you know. He'd probably go home and smack the pigeons.
When you're sitting down there, because I always say, you know, kind of at the end of the day when everybody's gone home and you've packed up running, you're left with your memories. And we all have good, bad and indifferent memories. And Roy can be certainly proud of the kind of things that he did achieve.
Superimposed upon that target, that desire to run in the Olympics, there would always be club races to run. There would always be targets to meet. And for Roy, it's probably not taking it too far to say that running had become a kind of an addiction.
From dreaming of Mexico City and Olympic fame, Roy turned to local Staffordshire races, a passion which never left him. In 1968, with his running career apparently behind him, Roy pursued a new pastime, and he found it at Stoke City Football Club. Roy was appointed first-team fitness coach, where he could share his wealth of experience and put his army physiotherapy training to good use. At the time, Stoke had a good side that included 1966 World Cup winning legend Gordon Banks, who personally benefited greatly from Roy's strict training regime.
Well, Roy was a sturdy sort of person, but what we did, we'd have these type of people in the group of players anyway, the very odd few, and we used to sort of break them down by having a joke and a laugh with them, taking the mickey out of them a bit and wanting them to come back at us, and eventually they did. So we got Roy to sort of bite back at us a little bit once he got used to our sense of humour, you know, which we always had in the dressing room. Well, I couldn't believe the guy. we started the season, and we always used to start going to Trentham Gardens, and we would do cross-country runs. We'd go right round the perimeter of the gardens, and then we'd run up this, sprint up this large hill, and we'd be out there all morning. So he comes along now, and he says, right, we're still going to do the perimeter, we've got to get your lungs going, we've got to get the legs pumping. And what he'd do, we'd all start in a group, and off we go, and of course there's slides in grades, and you know, you sort of push it up there. This guy would be at the front leading the pace, taking the pace, because he'd got an idea of how fast we could run and so forth. So then, obviously, they start to straddle out now. Some can't keep up with the front runners. He'd tell the front runners to keep going at this pace. He would now jump to the back of the line, encourage the ones at the back. Come on, try and keep up. Keep with me, keep up. He'd be with them for a few minutes. Then he'd start to push himself right forward again, right to the front of the pack, and it was like, nobody could believe the strength that he'd got in this little body. It was fantastic. Anybody like that, with the knowledge they've got about their particular sport, you tend to want to listen to. And he sat us all down and told us what he was going to do, how he was going to change it, and so you said to yourself, well, he's been very good at his sport, so hopefully he can make us better athletes for our game.
Although Roy left his position after a year, Stoke City went on to 2 FA Cup semi-finals and a League Cup final victory, the club's greatest era. It was from one club to another for Roy, as he formed Staffordshire Moorlands Athletics Club. A club still competing and winning to this day.
He started a club called Staffordshire Moorlands, and I was living on the borders of Staffordshire and Cheshire in those days, and he persuaded me to join by bringing virtually all the members of the club over to help me dig my garden, and to sort of persuade me that it was a team job, this, and that as a team that the club could go places. And it certainly worked, because I joined the club, and I think from small beginnings it was quite a successful club. So he wasn't just a single-minded, selfish type of individual like most athletes have to be when they're actually competing. He also had visions of leadership.
Yeah,
that's right.
Spot on. And the club colours, he was proud of his North Staffordshire.
Yeah.
The club colours designed around green for the country and gold for winning. And to take Staffordshire Moorlands from nothing in 1976 it was, to the third best team in Britain on a 12-man road relay, which means you have a great strength and depth, was a hell of an achievement. So, being what he'd achieved individually through his career in the 60s and 70s, they put it in a team, and proud of it, for the Moorlands. Staffordshire Moorlands we're called, third in Britain.
Roy continued competing in local races, but at the age of 40 was looking for a new challenge once more. It came in the form of the World Veteran Championships, and it offered Roy a new chance of competitive racing, satisfaction and pride. In his first veteran race, he won the 5,000 metres, a resounding victory which earned him an invitation to the Toronto Games, the unofficial Veteran Olympics. And this time, the injuries that cursed his first career would not ruin his second coming. Roy won 3 gold medals: the 5,000 metres, 10,000 metres and the cross country. It was a resounding victory, a clean sweep, and a deserving swan song for an athlete who devoted his life to the sport he loved. Roy went on to be heralded as one of the great veteran runners, competing in races into the mid-1980s before eventually retiring. Despite suffering from serious illnesses, Roy now splits his time between competitive pigeon racing and supporting young athletes, passing on his lifetime of running experience for the next generation to enjoy. And he's as passionate as ever.
Up, look up, look up. Well done, Cowan. Well done, lads. Sit there, feel for the rhythm, feel for the rhythm. Feel for the rhythm. Well done, girls. Nice and steady. Pick it up, pick it up. I know it's cold, lads. It's about -2 or 3 now. Lovely, away we go. Take it away. Put your glove over your mouth, just got a bit of warm air in your lungs. Who's on now? Well run, good effort. Feel for the rhythm, lads, feel for the rhythm. Good running. All the way there, all the way you go. Well done, Karen.
From his humble upbringing in Staffordshire to ruling the world, from injury nightmare to veteran success, and a career that spanned 4 decades. Roy the Red Fox Fowler, to anyone who met him, competed against him, supported him, or learnt from him, will always remember him as a winner to the end.